I'm here to talk about PRISM, which is a newer product line solution that WorldViz has created, and I'm going to dive right in and just talk about kind of the way that it is being used and the way that this audience, now knowing a little bit more about who's joined us, can use a system, a PRISM theater, to enhance research or training and simulation. So this is exactly where this solution fits. So I'm going to start with WorldViz for those of you who are unfamiliar with our company. We are in the technology space. We use immersive technology to enhance the way people create, learn, and collaborate. So we have been in this game for a long time. We're one of the pioneers in the simulation industry with 20+ years at this point, providing innovative solutions to clients in various industries, including partnering with Biofeedback in this exact space. So we have a thing to know about WorldViz is we are not new to the technology that's being integrated or the applications. We have survived and thrived through dramatic changes and developments within the simulation industry. And if any and all of you are following that, you've seen kind of a drastic change to consumer devices. And as we incorporate and integrate these new and exciting innovations and inventions, it really just enhances the way we can support our partners and our clients with the research and training that they're providing. So we are not clinical experts, but we are in fact just the technology experts behind empowering research and development and training. So next slide here. So to that end, VizMove PRISM is a newer development that we have rolled out at this point. Several institutions, including nursing training programs and paramedic programs, where there is a need for an enhanced immersive simulation theater. So in medical simulation and in research, the stimuli or the surrounding environment can play a role in adding pressures or distractions, or even supplementing with support. And having a theater that is controllable at your fingertips allows you to enhance the scene and evoke a sense of presence for your learners or your subjects within these scenarios. So we are and will continue to develop PRISM and the functions as our background is in this technology, based on the client needs and the feedback that we receive from the different industries that are applying PRISM. So it is a turnkey system that has wraparound displays, so we can configure in multiple configurations, from one screen to a full 4-screen wraparound projection system. Surround audio is included, controllable lighting so that you can add effects with lighting, and interactive controllers, including touch on the screen, a tablet controller that instructors or proctors or researchers can use to affect triggers or integrated components within the theater, and a gyro mouse for kind of mousing around and controlling that way. The real critical innovative part about PRISM is the user interface, which is designed for everyday users. It's not a programming interface. There is no programming. It doesn't take hours to create scenes. It takes minutes to take a media file and create an immersive simulation experience. We're going to talk more about that as I show you the actual product. So here I'm going to play a quick video. It's on mute. Hopefully you can all see. This is my colleague walking around in our office theater, showing how easy it is to first bring up content, right? So this is just a picture we took down. We're in Santa Barbara, California, and so walking down to the harbor is very accessible. Taking a 360-degree camera, which comes with the system, capturing a video, in this case, from inside a harbor patrol boat, and showing how quickly we can essentially broadcast that within the projection theater, and now create a sense of presence or a sense of immersion within that location. So if you were doing you wanted to run a scenario in one of these particular environments, that's the workflow. It's capture and then dragging and dropping that media file to within the theater, and then enhancing with, we can see a trigger here on the screen with the exclamation mark that's over the fire. Again, we're not telling folks what to do with their research or how to set up their training, but we're just showing the capabilities here. So this information trigger can be activated from either the control panel or what we saw earlier in the video from walking up and actually touching the screen. So it's actual hand touch enabled interaction. And I think here, and that's basically the end of that video. So what we saw is controllable lights, where the lighting effect in the room can change, and these are the light configurations actually will lighten the room the way we set them up with projectors. So that, and then we saw the touch activation in the early part of the video, and also the controller activated. So you have different ways of controlling the scene or scenario. PRISM Team, is just quick slide there. Moving on to the ecosystem. So as we talk about WorldViz and our history, it isn't all and only about PRISM, but we fit comfortably into a category that WorldViz has supported for our whole history. So the VizMove solutions category incorporates the head-mounted display, walking systems, projection systems, and now PRISM, which is the standalone projection system with integration possibilities. So if you have an idea outside of what I'm describing here today, we're really interested and willing to talk about those as well. So upgrading existing VR projection rooms is certainly an option with PRISM. It just means adding the ease of use and versatility that PRISM brings to the table with the drag and drop simplicity and realism from photos and media files that you drag into the system. And then the add-on options, again, we're willing to explore with you, and we're extremely excited and see a lot of interest and possibility with BioPack systems. So bringing the MP160 systems and the bionomadic systems into PRISM really opens doors for research and for some objective data collection when you're measuring stressors, for example, within the PRISM theater. Sense systems are also provided through BioPack, and then we can also enhance our own our PRISM systems with 3D visualization and 3D interaction as well, if those become interesting or important parts of the work you're doing. Oops, sorry for that. So context and realism. So if you're involved in the simulation community, which I saw about 40% of folks on this webinar are, you may follow the Society for Simulation in Healthcare or INASCL recommendations or criteria for developing simulation scenarios. And there are criteria specifically speaking to context and realism within simulation. These are actual criteria that are developed to ensure that simulation is effective and engaging and memorable. And so bringing the cognitive and clinical skills training into PRISM is a practical and easy thing to do, allowing you to standardize and scaffold that curriculum. So if you're creating a context for where simulation occurs, and you have a first responder or a nursing application or other application that requires not just a clinical skill or a cognitive skill to be trained, but the environment plays a role. So whether that's a parent emoting, crying, yelling, a distraction from an observer, an onlooker, a heckler, these things can be built into the context of the training and may affect the performance of the subject or of the trainee in that situation. So practicing in these settings that may be hazardous or difficult to replicate, PRISM allows you essentially the research theater to create and standardize these scenarios so that they're repeatable and your data can be more meaningful. And then in terms of realism, since you're actually capturing photos and videos from the real environment, bringing them into bringing them into PRISM allows you to now localize and customize that content. So you're bringing the actual clinical space that your learners or trainees may end up working in into the clinical environment. So a use case there could be training surgical nurses in an operating room that's in an adjacent or affiliated hospital, so that they can learn the orientation of the space walking pads, locations of equipment, so that when they actually train in that space, they have a head start and understand exactly how they can be effective in that space. So reflecting reality within the sim has that benefit, and then creating that environment that's familiar and known, and then sometimes can be local. Also, sharing content is certainly an option. So being able to download and share your PRISM files is a real value add if you have sister sites or a community of simulation professionals or research that's happening in multiple locations. You have that access as well. So plenty of PRISM benefits that I've spoken to so far. To ensure I don't leave anything out, so I'm just going to kind of briefly go through this. There are institutional benefits that allow you to set up a single space that can serve multiple simulations. So rather than traditionally you would mock up a room with all the cabinetry and accessories that serve a particular simulation training need, and being able to do that with PRISM virtually or with projection allows you to now go through several different spaces or multiple spaces utilizing just one space. So it's a space saver, right? When that space isn't in use, you have an empty room because everything is high wall or ceiling mounted, and you have a clear floor space that can be used for other purposes. It's also a very cost-effective way to implement simulation, as opposed to purchasing all of the equipment and furnishings that might enhance or make a room more realistic. For the instructor or researcher, standardizing environments for continuity in either research or training is extremely important. And some of the background in WorldViz comes from psychology, where you have some of those kind of strict guidelines for data collection. And so we really understand the importance of this and how it's now translating into clinical training and research in many different areas. Capturing local scenes from real life clearly can be a benefit to an instructor who wants to bring their learners up to speed and kind of contextualize what they're training for. So if it were a nursing and you are going to work particularly in a particular hospital, that might be an important feature. And then enhancing content. So bringing in the support, bringing in charts and graphs and X-rays and MRIs, training videos, equipment training videos. So you can use the training space now to supplement learning as well. It's not just a just simulation space, but you can pause a simulation and bring up a training video that will then give somebody an idea of how to perform a procedure and intervention, or how to use a particular piece of equipment. For the learner, for the subject, evoking a sense of presence. Truly, that is the goal of PRISM, is to evoke a sense of something, and that's up to the instructor, for the creator to develop a scene that evokes a sense of presence and a sense of engagement for the learner. Visual and audio cues will help enhance the simulation and drive engagement, and we'll see how well the webinar does in kind of showing you what the auditory effect is. But I can assure you that being in one of these rooms, and I invite you to come to a PRISM theater and feel what it's like to actually be in this space. So suspending disbelief with highly realistic scenarios is clearly a benefit for a learner or a subject, creating a memorable experience of your training. And I'm going to play one more video just to show PRISM before I actually show you the live demo here. So you're taking an empty room, and with the click of a button, turning it into the training space of your needs. So if this were a first responder simulation, for example, that was occurring on the side of a highway, being able to go there with a camera and now recreate the pressure, the sensation of semis driving by, adds an element to the scenario. So these videos are just showing capture and create, and that's kind of that's the messaging, right? That's what we want you to understand, is that it is that easy. This is built for the non-technical, non-programmer to capture an environment that's going to make a difference and enhance the training or research that you're working on. So I'm going to now go to my stop sharing. I need to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to give you a quick demo and walkthrough of the actual space we have set up here in our office. Just give me 1 second because I've got another webcam to move over to. Okay, so here, stand up here. So you can see I'm actually in a PRISM theater in our office, and I can kind of walk around the space and give you a sense of how large it is. And then these spaces can be from, you know, about 11 by 11 to pretty much as large as you would want. But I say that hesitantly because I want it to make sense. It should always make sense that you're creating a space that matches the environment that you want to reflect. So just to show you, this is clearly, I know you can see this is a virtual environment, but you have since it's a 360 degree environment, I have the actual control to kind of change the perspective, right? If there was a different perspective in this space that I wanted to give for one purpose or another, I could affect that. And I'm starting off with this very basic scene that doesn't have any triggers, just to kind of show you what the technology looks like. So this is captured within a clinical space, clinical setting. This is an urgent care that I took a 360 degree camera and just walked in, set it up on a tripod, and within, you know, less than a minute, I had a media file that I could drag and drop into the PRISM interface. So here I'm going to just show the lighting effects here. I'm going to turn lighting on first. All right, so you can see in real time, I am just changing the lighting effect in the room. So I'm not doing this for any purpose other than to show you that it is something that is just one of the controls that you have at your fingertips with this tablet controller that can be used in a control room or within the actual PRISM room to help guide the learner or the subject through the experience or the training. So going back to the PRISM interface, allows you to browse through the content that you want to then select and then give that experience. So here I'm gonna click on another clinical setting that has some audio files as well that you can trigger, again, on or off to enhance and bring what in this case is a still image to life a bit. So I can start adding more hospital beeping sounds, and I can affect the volume in real time. Obviously, I'm going to turn the sounds off just so that they're not a distraction over your ability to hear me right now, and show you how from the controlling device I placed 6 triggers in front and center of the screen just to make it very easy for you to see, and I can then select those by walking over and touching them. So it really truly is, you know, you touch the wall, it brings up the media file, right? So as I approximate these icons that I've located rather close together, and you can spread these out and put them wherever you want, anywhere on the walls. I can then, well, actually, I'll show you that video again. I can touch the video to pause it and then play it again, touch the edge of the video to make it disappear, and then bring up as many of these as I want, right? So you could scatter videos or media files as many places as you want within the theater. I can bring up different stimuli as an instructor that I would like to expose my subject or trainee to. So if there was a training video that was showing a particular instructions on a medical device, I could bring those videos up. Or if there are images or videos for whatever purpose that you want to bring onto the screen. In this case, this is just a trach cleaning video for an infant. If you're trying to evoke a specific kind of reaction from your learner, and this is where we could tie into the physio data tracking with Biopack. If there was a particular media file that bringing up might change the way somebody's feeling, and you're monitoring that effect, this is just one way to do it. So either hand touching the screen or handling it by going through the control device and selecting the images or videos or audio files, or even changing scenes from one scene to another that would then evoke the reaction from your learner, from your trainee that you're after. So I just really wanted to show you that the simplicity of the interface and being able to, these are just 360 videos, so I can change the perspective at any time. I can adjust the volume, bring in audio settings. So if at a particular interval in a training you wanted to have a sound or an audio play behind the students, it's a surround audio system, and that's certainly a capability that might, a dog barking or somebody yelling or something that maybe affects the way that that you're performing at your particular task. So this will give you a quick whirlwind tour through a couple more files here. This is just walking down a street in Tokyo, for example. I'll get out of the way here so you can see better. And I'm always going to just use this compass to kind of show you different perspectives, just to give you the sense that in fact we are choosing this perspective. It's all within your control. I'm going to choose. Let's see here. Here's an urgent care waiting room. So if you wanted to present a patient case and give a patient profile, you could walk to the counter, touch the window, learn who the patient is, or learn who you are as part of a training scenario, and then use that data to incorporate into the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you, Bryce. Awesome to see the system in action. And yeah, I think I'm just going to be piggybacking on what you were saying quite a bit here, Bryce. Everyone can see my screen. Hey, my name's Dan. I'm also with WorldViz. I'm speaking a little bit more to WorldViz's more traditional, hardcore virtual reality type use cases. These really aren't exclusive of the PRISM applications that we were talking about. In fact, Bryce alluded very clearly to the fact that you can add this type of 3D interactivity to a PRISM system. And that's actually pretty, where we've been delivering these types of virtual reality systems for many years. And so it's really kind of an add-on to the PRISM system, or it can be an alternative. You can just focus exclusively on this virtual reality type application. So what's cool about projection VR, as we call it, if you're familiar with Cave technology, it's very similar to that, but it utilizes these same ultra short throw projectors. So you have a very low footprint system that's also much more cost effective. So what you get is actually a 3D immersive version of the type of system that Bryce was just showing. So a lot of times the content's going to be computer generated graphics. And what you can do is you can actually navigate through that scene with a wand controller, just like you would with a virtual reality headset. You can use that wand controller to interact with content. And then you're also being head tracked by cameras. So when you're in the space, as you're walking around, you actually get to kind of walk through that computer generated environment. And I'll show a couple of videos that illustrate that a little bit better. So really you can think of this as a virtual reality headset that's on the walls. So instead of having to put a headset on, you're actually just wearing these lightweight 3D glasses. And it's really nice because it lends itself to these types of group experiences. Multiple people can experience content simultaneously, but still you can have that interactive virtual reality type experience where you have controllers and head tracking. And all of that can be pulled out for data analysis to see where a person is in the virtual environment. And it's really kind of going towards some of the WorldViz core user group, which is academic researchers. So I'll just talk a little bit more about this. It's great for group users. It goes beyond headsets, but you can also combine it with VR headsets. And I'll show you a couple images in a minute to explain what I mean by that. So you can see here, we're looking at an operating room. You can actually interact with these spaces. And yeah, it's pretty great in my opinion. So these are just some of the key components. Again, this is very much similar to the type of thing that you'd have with PRISM, but the real key component that we're adding to the system is this motion tracking. And that allows you to have that head tracking where you're mounting it to the 3D glasses, and also the wand controller to pick up and grab things. On the software side, we're a little bit different from the PRISM here because we're using a more development heavy type tool. This is a tool that we've maintained for many years called Vizard. It is a simulation engine. It is a 3D rendering engine as well. So what you're able to do is create interactive virtual scenarios, just like this piazza that we see here. What's really cool about this for researchers is that it's Python based. So you're able to bring in Python libraries, but also it's just something that many researchers are more familiar with in terms of computer language. So it's a lot quicker to create content, especially if you have that Python background. And what's really nice about it too is it connects super easily to all these different hardware devices. Most importantly for this webinar, connects directly with Biopack. So you can, in your virtual environment, add triggers, add markers for all sorts of different stimuli, different responses. You can also connect very easily to a projection system like we're talking about now, or a headset system, also different types of trackers like treadmills and motion capture and things like that. So it's a really flexible and open-ended tool, but again, it's going to be a little bit more developer heavy. Somebody with some background in programming is going to need to be owning your content when you're getting into this type of content creation. This is what I mean by the head tracking. So if you've never seen a system like this before, I'm just going to play this video real quick. So one quick note of explanation. My colleague captured this video by taking our little head tracking device that we usually mount to the glasses and actually putting it on top of his cell phone. So this is really like a first-person view of what it's like to walk through a computer-generated environment. So you can see really fast, there's the floor right here in the corner, and we're walking towards the screen. And you're actually walking through that bush, and you're able to even look around the corner here. So the way that the motion tracking system works is it really makes it a one-to-one environment where you can move through this space, right? And we can add this onto a PRISM system. We can also deliver this as just a standalone projection VR system. So you can see that they're actually walking through this environment. And that's what the motion tracking allows you to do. So to give you a little bit better of an idea of what this looks like, let me go to my next slide here. So this is projection VR in action. And this is just what it looks like from behind. If you're just observing a user, we've got a person walking around, they've got their heads being tracked, and they've also got the interaction one. So let's take a look really fast. So you can see this is our colleague Andy. He's reaching out, he's grabbing items, moving them around. It's a little blurry because it's actually in stereo 3D. So for him, it actually looks like he's looking into the space. If you've ever seen a movie in 3D, it's like that, but on steroids. We use active shutter glasses. So you can see Andy walking back and forth in his head tracking. You can see how the perspective's changing. You can navigate through these virtual environments with the controller. So this is really just going beyond that 360 video to give you access to computer-generated environments, computer-generated data sets, any type of 3D content that you might want. And then again, here's a look at what it looks like for a group of users to experience this content together. So one thing to note is that the one person is being head tracked. The other people kind of have to gather a little bit closer to the other person in order to get that perspective, but it really lends itself nicely to these group experiences. So let's go to the next slide here. Oops. So if you're a researcher, why would you maybe want to consider projection VR? It really is an alternative to a VR headset. Some of the advantages are that certain user groups might not want to put a headset on, especially in these kind of COVID era times when you have to go through a very specific cleaning procedure. You can actually clean 3D glasses much more easily. There are no cables. There's no heavy headgear. So certain populations really are going to lend themselves better to these types of projection experiences. You can also have a clinical researcher in that room with the person. So when you put on a headset, you kind of lose the sense of where you are, right? So in a way, this is an augmented reality system because we still have our whole body around us, and we can also have maybe a clinical researcher guiding us through an experiment, a procedure, even a clinical application. It's also going to give you slightly easier access just for making adjustments if you're doing any kind of like EEG or FNIR. So certainly you can do EEG and FNIR in a VR headset, but this is going to give you just a little bit more access to make those kind of on-the-fly adjustments to get good data out of your EEG and FNIR system. One thing we do like to emphasize, and what I see almost all of our academic clients using this for, is also just as a showcase system, something that when parents are visiting, donors are visiting, you can bring them into this really impressive, really inviting environment and just show them what you're doing. It's instantly something that people recognize as a high-tech, exciting experience. So you can use it for classroom instruction. You can use it for facility tours. So we see it really being kind of a showroom as well as an application delivery system. So I'll just speak really quickly a little bit more to headsets. So if you're familiar with VR headsets, and that's something that WorldViz does all the time. We oftentimes are building out VR labs where we'll have a projection system and then a number of headsets and then integrating Biopack, All of that is being delivered as a complete service to the customer. And headsets have certain advantages, and the biggest one I would say is just that they are more immersive. They're also lower cost than a projection system. But again, there's some differences here, and I think you're starting to see what might be a headset. If you really need immersion, is probably going to be the way that you want to go, because you can look down and still be in this virtual environment. But there are many advantages to using a projection system, and that's really for group interaction, or again, if you have a need to be with your participant. And then what we see a lot actually is combining these systems, and I'll show you that in just a second as well. So Bryce talked to this a little bit, and this is very similar to the PRISM setup. But what we use is these ultra short throw projectors. And this is our probably most common standard projection system that we install, which is a corner setup. So it's cool because you can actually just take the corner of an existing room. We project directly on the wall with these ultra short throw projectors. You can actually just make that really pop by painting black around it. So the cameras are mounted up in the corners here. And that really just gives you this nice immersive environment with really minimal facilities changes that you have to make, right? Just pretty much painting the walls, and ideally not having any like outlets or anything to interrupt that image. So this is really kind of our standard setup. There's other configurations that we can do. We can actually do a portable version of this. That's like a pop-up screen, the kind of thing that you might see at like a trade show. We can mount the cameras to the arms here. You can also just do a single wall, but these systems are really extensible. So what I mean by that is you can take a look here. This is a system that we maintain that's got 6 projectors, right? And it's a huge space. This might be going overkill for many people, but it should just give you an idea that if you have a facility, we can really extend that. And it's really nice because you can do 2D content, 3D content. We can add that PRISM functionality that Bryce was showing. Really just configure this to meet your needs and to meet your facility, right? So an existing footprint, we can really just put a system like this in there. What I want to show you right now is actually how it's combined with a headset user. So you might be familiar, especially any of you who are working in the more medical fields, with a company called Steris. They produce many devices for hospitals and things like that. We actually have a showroom that we built for them using this projection VR technology. What's really cool is that you can actually see here, we have 2 headset VR users, and they're standing there, and you can actually see their avatars in the projection system behind them. So if you've ever watched a person in a headset before, you don't really get to see what they're seeing. But with projection technology, you can actually look into the simulation and have it almost be like a dance hall mirror of that virtual environment. So a whole audience can actually be engaged in what would be just a couple of people, otherwise just in a headset interacting with each other. So this is another view of that same system that just gives you a little bit more of the kind of typical scope and scale of these systems. Another couple of use cases. This is a really more straightforward use case for research. This is a system that we built at the University of Houston, and they're doing addiction treatment and research. So people who are dealing with drug dependence, they can actually be exposed to these stimuli, in this case, a party scene. And the reason why a projection system was really useful here, not only are we getting that biopack data where we can actually see how a person's reacting to these triggering stimuli, but you also have a clinical researcher who's sitting there with their patient as they're going through this space, right? So that's one of the nice things about projection VR, is having that ability to be with a person so they're not in a headset by themselves. And then just a final sort of business collaboration application. This is one that we've seen many times, but using it for pre-visualization of data. Maybe at your university, there's an architecture group. They can actually very much benefit from these types of systems because it's oftentimes used in these engineering pre-visualization applications. You can see what we call building information data BIM model on the wall here for doing pre-visualization. So we see this for people doing brain scans. Just using this to explore any 3D data set is really where you're starting to open up the possibilities. And then for businesses, Suffolk uses this for actually inter-site collaboration. So you can talk to people on the other side of the world in your system, or again, combine it with headsets. So I'm going to leave it pretty much there, but happy to take any questions or follow up with anybody who's got specific ideas about how they can use this technology. Just